Welcome to the Where Do Gays Retire podcast, where we help you in the LGBTQ plus community find a safe and affordable retirement place. Join Mark Goldstein as he interviews others who live in gay-friendly places around the globe. Learn about the climate, cost of living, healthcare, crime and safety, and more. Now, here's your host, Mark Goldstein.
Today, we visit Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and Wilton Manors, Florida. We have two guests, Randy Lapp and Aaron Burke, and they're going to tell you all about Fort Lauderdale and Wilton Manors. Let me introduce Randy. Randy is a director of corporate HR and corporate communications for Metals USA, which has its corporate headquarters in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Randy has lived in Wilton Manors in Oakland Park in the Fort Lauderdale area since April of 2013 after relocating from Chicago, Illinois. Fort Lauderdale continues to be an attractive place to live, work, retire with a high quality of life. One of my favorite places. And Aaron Burke is originally from Reno, Nevada. No wonder why you like dry weather. Right next to Lake Tahoe. He went to University of Las Vegas, Nevada, where he studied business management and marketing. At the age of 24, after college, he moved to Boca Raton, Florida to pursue his real estate career, soon to find out that sunny Wilton Manors, Fort Lauderdale, was the place to be. You'll tell us all about that. 20 years later, he's a high-producing agent with RE/MAX experience in Wilton Manors. It's funny, I will tell you a story about me walking into his little shop there. In his free time, he enjoys cycling, yoga, kayaking, and group fitness. Many hobbies include antique cars and landscaping. Gentlemen, welcome to the podcast.
I'll go first. Good morning, everybody. My name's Randy Lapp. Delighted to participate in this conversation today. I think we have some interesting thoughts to share about life in Fort Lauderdale. Aaron is a natural complement to this discussion with his background in real estate, and we're looking forward to getting into this with you.
Excellent. Mark, thank you so much for your time and putting this all together. It's such a great idea that you've orchestrated all this for everyone trying to decide where they want to move in the future. And we're going to tell you a little bit about Wilton Manors and Fort Lauderdale and all the good things about it and why you should live here. It's one of the fastest growing, I would say, gay areas, so to speak. And there's a few reasons why. So anyway, Mark, back to you.
Okay, we'll tell you a little bit about the area. So Fort Lauderdale is a city on Florida's southeastern coast, known for its beaches and boating canals. The Strip is the promenade running along Oceanside Highway A1A. It's lined with upscale outdoor restaurants, bars, boutiques, and luxury hotels. Other attractions include the International Swimming Hall of Fame, with pools and a museum of memorabilia, and Hugh Taylor Birch State Park featuring trails and a lagoon. Fort Lauderdale, as we former New Yorkers call it, Fort Lauderdale. We naturally came down to Fort Lauderdale in the winter months in New York. That was the place to be. I remember I have very, very many fond memories of going there. Wilton Manors it's a city in Broward County, right outside Fort Lauderdale. As of the 2020 census, the city had a population of 11,426 people. Wilton Manors is part of the Miami metropolitan area, which was home to 6,166,000 people in the 2020 census. So tell us, you've lived there quite a long time. Where were you originally from?
Well, why don't I just go first? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Randy. But coming from Nevada, I thought Florida would be an interesting place to work for wintertime. I came down here to work for about 3 to 4 months. And then, as I said, I moved to Boca Raton. And then for Thanksgiving, I went to the beach in Fort Lauderdale. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Sunny, nice, no wind, no snow, no cold. And looking around, this is where everybody is. Okay, I'm living in the wrong part of the world. So that to me was like a huge draw as a young person to live there. And then 20 years later, other things, there's so many more reasons why to live here. Our weather's absolutely beautiful right now. We're getting into the best part of best part of the winter, so to speak, and fall coming up. Yeah.
And for myself, I was originally from Wisconsin, also one of those cold weather places, and eventually we moved to Chicago. I was there for about 20 years. And in both of those places, as you do, you have to get away in the dead of winter and get some sunshine. And so in the 90s, we used to come down and go to Miami was kind of the go-to destination, and we would go to South Beach and had a lot of great memories and fun times there. And then Miami changed, and there was this kind of pivot that occurred at the end of the 90s and the beginning of the 2000s, and we started to see this growth in Fort Lauderdale, and in particular Wilton Manors, as kind of one of those popular getaway destinations for the LGBT community. And I started going to Fort Lauderdale, and I would come down sometimes 3-4 times a winter. And I specifically remember one trip that I came down. I was here and I was happy and the sun felt good. And I was like, why go back? Like, why do I need to go back? And literally the next week I went home and was stranded in like a snowstorm trying to get home from the western suburbs of Chicago to where I lived in Boys Town. And on the freeway, I made the decision, that's it, I'm going home tonight. I'm going to start putting my resume out there. And that was 2012. And by 2013, I had moved to Fort Lauderdale permanently.
That's great. It's where the boys are.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about Fort Lauderdale, Wilton Manors climate. I know it's hot. It's Florida in the summer. Do you guys, we call it here on the West Coast, we call it monsoon season. So I don't know if you call it that. I don't think so. But
It's kind of our rainy season, I believe is what it's called here. And it's basically summertime. So we've just ended that for the most part. And now the weather's turning really nice. The humidity is going away. There's really only 2 months that are what I call intolerable, meaning that it's not really intolerable, but it's very humid and rainy. And I think that's going to be August and September. Randy, would you think? You think that's the hottest?
I just want to comment on Mark's use of the word, it's hot here. It's interesting because everyone says that, especially people up north. They'll say, I don't know how you could live there. It's so hot. And if you look historically at the temperature throughout the year, especially in summer, it's oftentimes hotter in Chicago than it is in Fort Lauderdale. The issue is we are in the tropics, and it's the humidity that makes it feel hotter. But actual temperature-wise, it's oftentimes cooler in South Florida than it is in a lot of places up north, which is kind of an interesting little fun fact. The humidity is what makes it feel oppressive. And you walk out of an air-conditioned building, and they do tend to over-air condition the buildings here. And it's literally like a wall of humidity hitting you from about June till about September.
yeah, I remember living in Florida. I could remember leaving work every day, and the temperature never went above 90 or 89. It was like stuck at 89. It never would go above 90. So yeah, I could definitely see that. It's the humidity.
And the last comment I'll make about temperature is I find that people have a very individual response to temperature and how they feel about temperature and what feels comfortable and what doesn't feel comfortable. And you have to kind of know what your preferences are. I honestly don't. I mean, I don't love it when it's super hot and humid, but I don't dislike it either. And so it really comes down to what you're comfortable with.
And then when it gets cooler, let's say it goes down to the 70s, you're kind of cold. You're kind of cold because I know your blood thins. It's what you get used to.
You start carrying hoodies with you when you go to a movie theater.
That is true. Very true.
Yes. Is living in an LGBT community important to you guys? And tell us, like, try to explain, like, go back and how did Wilton Manors become as gay as it is today? Like, it used to be a middle-class neighborhood that straight couple lived, and then all of a sudden, did the gays just move in and start gentrifying? How did that come about?
I'll let Aaron jump in on this too, but the history, as I understand it, was really you can kind of point to one business, Georgie's Alibi, which was already established in Tampa, wanted to open a satellite location, and they were, I'm told, one of the first businesses to open in the Wilton Manors area. I don't know why
Correct.
that
Yep.
demographic worked for them, but they picked that spot. And the timing was impeccable because it was right when that shift was taking place with South Beach. And I think folks, and I should add to that migration has been going on for some time. It started out with Key West, and then it moved from Key West to Miami. And then at some point it started to move from Miami to Wilton Manors and Fort Lauderdale. So there's been kind of this slow, gradual evolution. And we can talk more about this, but I see it happening even now with places like Pompano, which is a little north of here. And I just recently was up in West Palm, which was an extraordinary urban feeling community with, I hear, or I'm told, a growing LGBT community. So this continues to evolve. But back to your original question, it really had to do with Georgie's kind of started this. And as it got traction and other bars started to locate in that little area and create this safe place, as we see in these communities around the country where LGBT people like to vacation and gather.
Absolutely.
And it's a very specific community. It's Wilton Manors is surrounded by a canal, so it's literally an island. So it kind of geographically creates its own boundaries. So there's, I think, a number of reasons why it became so popular.
Wow.
Yeah, like they say, life is better here. That's their tagline on the Wilton Manor sign, but it's there's some truth to that. It's a really fun place to live. There's a lot of things offered catering to gay life, so to speak. It's kind of like-minded people, I guess, if you will, in a way. And it's a neat place to live. I think it's more gay than South Beach or even Key West now. I think that they're becoming less.
I think it's the gayest place in the U.S. or one of them.
If you look
next
at
to like San Francisco, or for a small population, to me, it's all gay. And it's really interesting how you said that the Alibi started, Georgie's Alibi started.
I think that was the first, thing. I believe so. That was one of the first places. Yeah.
And I've been to that strip mall many times.
And that is the main point of gay life is right there, right on the drive. That's where everything happens.
There's also elements, I think, that made this kind of the perfect storm for this evolution. And you have unique, small architectural homes that kind of reflected some of the charm of Key West, but in a what I'll call safer context. We're at a higher elevation. It's easier to get in and out. And so I think people were drawn to these smaller mid-century homes that there's an abundance of in that area. Because like you said, it was kind of a modest community at one point. And the other thing I'll say is that the growth has been significant, that Wilton Manors really is not large enough anymore to host the LGBT community that wants to live in this area. So now we see it crossing out beyond the borders of the canals and into Oakland Park and Fort Lauderdale and these other areas around there. It's really quite a remarkable story, if you will.
So it's funny. It's like I usually ask, is there a gayborhood? But all of Wilton Manors is really a gayborhood.
It really is. Yeah.
It's, to me, isn't it true? It's like, what's the percentage of gay to heterosexual? I think it's like, I don't know.
In Wilton Manors, I think it's like 60 or 70%. It's very high.
Yeah.
Being a realtor, I can't answer that question.
Okay, yeah.
But most of our clients, I will say, in the last 10 years, most of the people that I deal with specifically are gay men about 50 and above. That's who's moving here, and it's ultimate paradise. It's kind of what they had planned in their younger years. They move here and they love it. There's so much stuff to do.
COVID also threw jet fuel on this whole thing, and we saw extraordinary interest from all parts of the country about living in South Florida once COVID hit for a variety of reasons. And I think that one of the biggest factors is now people are able to live and work from a lot of different places. And so they're choosing to move to Fort Lauderdale or Oakland Park or Wilton Manors and live and work because they can. And so it's changed the mix of who's coming here and why they're coming here. And I'm seeing, and Aaron can probably speak to this, also a lot more folks. A lot of people used to come here to retire here, and now a lot of working professionals who are still working are choosing to live here. So we're seeing that pivot and that shift in the demographic.
Yeah, it's very easy to get in and out here. We've got a great airport, and we're right next to a freeway system, and it's really set up for ease of living.
Actually, three airports with potentially, arguably, a fourth airport. So you have Miami, you have Fort Lauderdale, and you have West Palm all within kind of an hour. And once they get the Brightline set up to Orlando Airport, which is just about to be finished, they anticipate that that could actually act like a fourth airport for like international flights and things like that, and just jump on the Brightline and it'll bring you right here.
Wow.
Right.
That's incredible. Do you think that prices, what did COVID do to real estate prices in Fort Lauderdale?
Made it very desirable, that's for sure. Everybody that could work from home pretty much moved here because it's been on their radar to move here. So there's no reason not to now. So the demand went through the ceiling. Absolutely.
And in both selling prices and rentals have
Agree.
increased significantly because of this interest.
And rentals are really hard to find right now. I mean, there's extremely high priced. You have people coming into our office all the time. What can I get for $1,500 a month?
Nothing.
Well, nothing. Let's start with nothing. There's an old saying, you double your budget, you can get everything you want. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough to find a good rental.
Interesting commentary about residential living in particularly Fort Lauderdale is that we are very landlocked. We obviously have the ocean to the east, we have the Everglades to the west, and that little sliver of land in the middle is all you got. And so it does create some supply and demand issues.
Is real estate a little bit less expensive as you go out of Wilton Manors to Oakland Park?
Yeah, I think
areas?
Oakland Park's going to be the next Wilton Manors, so to speak, because it's just to give you some point of reference. Oakland Park is just north of Wilton Manors, so it's really connected. And some of the neighborhoods, North Andrews Gardens, so to speak, they're all smaller mid-century homes, kind of like what Randy was talking about, and more affordable. And it's just like Wilton Manors, only it's not quite Wilton Manors pricing.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's the neighborhood is expanding. I mean, there's a lot, not too many, but there's a lot of gay people that just want to move down to South Florida.
Yeah.
And
I think the homes are more set up for gay life rather than family, so to speak, being on the smaller scale, but extremely nice with the pool and close to all the activities and whatnot. That it's perfect for gay men for the most part, or gay couples of whatever mix.
Yeah. What would you say is the average 2-bedroom, 2-bath real estate price in either Wilton Manors and then Oakland Park?
Statistics. I've actually got that for you. So Wilton Manors, the median house price is now $615,000 this year. And then where you go more towards Oakland Park, it's about $450-ish, kind of in that category. Yeah.
Okay.
So of course there's more on each end, tons of nice homes, and the smaller ones are even more in demand due to people being able to buy them easier. But I'd say $450 for Oakland Park is definitely the median price.
That sounds pretty good to me. It's only like 10 minutes away, right?
2 miles. That's 2 miles. I actually live in Oakland Park. It's from my front door to my office at the corner of Gay and Gay on Wilton Drive. 2 miles.
I actually lived
Gay and Gay?
That's, corner of Gay and Gay. Right by Alibi.
I actually lived in Oakland Park and considered myself as walking distance to the drive. So if you drew a circle around the drive and everything in that area, I was 12 minutes walk, I think, from where I lived. Now, I just interestingly sold and moved west of 95, which is still Oakland Park. And historically, 95 had always been kind of a line, and there were people that lived on both sides, but most people wanted to try and stay east of 95. And again, because of this new demand and new neighborhoods that are starting to flourish, we're starting to see kind of activity west of 95 as well. And I quite like it. I'm really enjoying my decision to come out here.
And your neighborhood makeup is a lot of gay couples, isn't it, for the most part?
Yeah, I believe at least a third of it is LGBT, and there's 38 homes in a subdivision that was built in
brand new
2000.
subdivision, which is
That's so funny.
And then actually right next to us, they took a abandoned golf course that had sat just like a jungle for like 20 years, and Pulte is now developing that, and I think there's like 1,200 homes going in there.
Wow.
And that's really the first major new development in Broward or in this area in a very long time on that scale. But that's attracting a lot of LGBT folks because it's a chance to build a ground build new construction, which is very rare here.
Oh, yeah.
There's not much room to build. That is
Space.
exactly the problem. You pretty much have to
Right.
buy an old house, tear it down, and build a new one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is definitely growing. It's good to hear. The most of the gay bars, they're located on Wilton Drive. They're still all in that area, or they're scattered now?
If you drew a circle, I would say that 70% of them are within about a 12 block region.
Okay.
But then, like anywhere, you see these pockets of businesses that have flourished not being right on the drive or right next to the drive. And I can think of at least 4 or 5 little pockets of bars located not
Yep.
even in Wilton Manors that are located out in Oakland Park or Fort Lauderdale. And I think that unlike the rest of the country where it feels like there's fewer and fewer bars and places to gather, for whatever reason, the demographic or the people on vacation, the bars continue to flourish here.
I kind of like that. People are mixed. People say, "Oh, we don't need bars anymore because you have your apps, and it's not needed because it's so integrated into the culture and the life." I just feel more comfortable going to a gay bar than I do a straight bar.
Well, it's not just the bars. You've got a lot of really good dining restaurants as well, too, mixed in there. So there's a little bit of something for everyone. There's a little performing arts stage. They put on productions and whatnot on Friday and Saturday nights. It's not just bars. There's a lot of other things to do. A lot of parks to
Retail,
walk around. There is retail. Yeah,
there's a
I mean,
lot of retail that has kind of flourished both within the immediate core area on the drive, but then also as you get out and some of the further neighborhoods, all kinds of interesting retail that appeals to the LGBT markets kind of uniquely. There's one, what is the store called, Aaron, that's next to Sherwin-Williams on the
ooh,
drive?
let's see. It's Pride
It's one of
Factory. Pride
Pride
Factory.
Factory. And this is like, it's like a Walmart of
A
things that are
pride.
interested to gay people and
It's even
LGBT
bigger than
people.
ever in a brand new building. And
Yeah.
yeah, everything's
Wow.
awesome in there.
Wow. Sounds great. Is it easy to make friends? If I was a retiree moving to Fort Lauderdale, Wilton Manors, Oakland Park, is
Absolutely. I
is it
definitely
easy to
think
make
so. I think
friends?
you have to pick wherever your passion is, if it's coffee shops or bars or whatnot. Everybody's pretty friendly here for the most part. It can be whatever you make of it. If you go out there and seek it, you're going to find it. But for the most part, everybody's very friendly. Just pick your topic, your hobby, whether it's gardening, walking, running.
Boating.
Boating's big here. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
There's a very
Even
act, there's a very active group called Boys with Boats that they get together, I think once or twice a month. They have happy hours. So like Aaron said, it's kind of pick whatever group you're interested in and there's something for you to do that. There's also, I think, some really admirable community investment in their Pride Center, which was just opened within the
agree.
last year or two, which
Yeah.
has housing and meeting rooms. And they do a great job of bringing groups of people together and creating these communities of interest. And they have theater events. And it's really, I think, on a scale of for what they did for the scale and size of this community, it's quite impressive.
They've got a whole menu of activities all day long from sunup to sundown, 7 days a week there, from support groups to hobbies to whatever you want to do. It's kind of neat. Yeah, the Pride Center in Wilton
that's
Manors, they've got
great.
a lot of services that they offer. Most of them are actually free. And yeah, good.
That's great. That's great stuff because it's really needed in a lot of cities, pride centers, and especially a city of like Fort Lauderdale and Wilton Manors. That's a great thing. Tell us what the local economy is like. Can you provide examples of like your electric bills? I know you have to blast your air conditioning, you know.
Yeah, no oil or anything like that. Our biggest thing is electricity because you use air conditioning 12 months out of the year for the most part generally. So your power bill. But I think power overall it's not super expensive compared to other parts of the country from what I hear from other people.
What do you give us an example? What do you have as far as square footage?
I live in a small mid-century home. It's about 1,100 square feet, and my partner keeps it like an ice box. And our power bill is probably $150 a month. He has a home office there, so it's I don't think it's too extreme when you look at the whole picture of what you're paying for. About
No,
150.
that's not bad at
This
all.
this house that I just moved into is about 1,700 square feet, and I just had new air conditioning installed, which I think also influences your electric bill because the new air
Yep.
conditioning systems are much more efficient.
Yes,
But I keep it about 72 to 74 degrees, and my first bill just came and it's $178.
Love
that's
it.
not bad at all.
No.
Yeah, because I'm here in Phoenix and the air conditioner is on quite often, most of the day, and ours are into the 200s for the
Oh
most part.
wow.
Yeah,
Oh wow.
and I've had $300 bills. I just replaced the air conditioning in the condo, so it's gone down substantially.
As the technology improves for solar, more and more people are putting solar panels on their roofs. And I know folks that live in single family homes that have put the solar panels on and they actually sell power back to the power grid and have basically no electrical bill. They have to obviously pay for the solar panels.
Yeah.
But I think as that technology continues to improve, the one thing that there's very few things that we can say we have all the time here, but pretty much we have sun all the time here.
Yeah,
It's going to, I think, change the dynamic of what we do for power here as that technology improves.
that's awesome. How about water bills? Do you pay for water?
Okay, so that one's going to get you. So how that works is if you live in the city of Wilton Manors actually buys their water from Fort Lauderdale. So can be a little bit
Oh,
more expensive to have water, obviously, at your house. But another thing that we do have is the well system. So if you live in one of the older homes, they use the groundwater for your irrigation on your lawns and plants outside. So that's going to save you a little bit of money. But water is definitely expensive. And I think the biggest problem that we have here is the salt water infiltrating the fresh water, which is why it's become more expensive to purify and more in demand. Yep.
give us an example. What's your water bill like?
So I have a duplex right next to Wilton Manors, just on the other side of the water. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom. And the water bill there is probably about $450 a month. So unfortunately, my house in Oakland Park, the water bill is only about $80 a month. So it just kind of depends where you live within the city.
Understand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How about gas? Is that gas
We don't
bills?
have much gas. Yeah,
No.
it's not very popular here. There's a few neighborhoods
There's
that do have it, but not much.
which
Okay.
is if we do get to a conversation about the impact of storms here is a problem because it's very difficult to have an all home generator because we don't have natural gas to run them. So you would have to have unreasonable amounts of gasoline or natural gas tanks sitting around your house to run a generator if a storm hit. So I just throw that in. That's one of the deficits to that.
So a
Yeah.
little clarification on that. When you get your home generator, they bury a gas tank like in your front yard. It's underground. You don't see it, but
Right.
they do have to come fill it up. You have to plan ahead, and it's not as easy as a home that was plumbed for natural gas originally.
Gotcha. Tell us about the arts and culture scene. What does Fort Lauderdale Wilton Manors have to offer as far as that's concerned? Theater
It's
or
it's fairly robust, I think. And I, having lived in Chicago, which is kind of one of the meccas of anything related to the arts or the performing arts, other than New York City or San Francisco, perhaps, they have done a great job of creating, I think, good infrastructure for the arts. So we have venues for large concerts. You can go out here to Sunrise, and most of the big acts that are on tour perform there. They'll perform down in Miami at the Hard Rock Cafe Stadium, not to be confused with the Hard Rock Cafe Casino, two different places. And then within Broward County, we have the whole Broward County Arts Group, which is symphony and performing arts, and a beautiful, beautiful facility in downtown Fort Lauderdale that houses a lot of those performances. And then smaller venues that pick up some of these interesting acts that are a little bit less known. And then there's also a pretty, I think, robust group of small theater companies, surprisingly, that are active and flourishing and do 4, 5, 6 productions a year. In Wilton Manors, I think there's 2 alone.
Yep, absolutely.
So for a community of this size, it's a fairly robust arts and performing arts community.
that's great. Yeah, coming from New York, I would need my fix of culture. So sure.
Most of the big musicals always end up touring here, and so you can see things usually pretty soon after they're available in New York. But what I always tell people is one of the beautiful things about living here is you can just jump on an airplane and fly to Chicago and see or do something, or go for a weekend to New York and still do those things. There's abundance of flights in and out of here historically. And so you kind of get the best of both worlds that way.
Right. Tell us about the restaurant and foodie scene. Are you guys foodies? Do you like going out to dine?
Restaurants. There again, it depends on what you're looking for. We've got a lot of 5-star restaurants, everything from Churros. They're a fantastic restaurant that's right on the intercoastal waterway. For seafood, you've got all the restaurants on La Solis to choose from. Eddie V's, that's a great Italian restaurant, all the way down to smaller, more boutique fun places. But La Solis, which is probably about 2 miles south of us, that's a great area to walk around and find restaurants. Yeah. So there again, we've got everything under the sun here, I would say.
Yeah, been to Las Olas. It's a great little area just to walk around and dine. Yeah. How about in Wilton Manors itself proper? Is there any good dining places as well?
There's I think a really nice range of choices. It's all good, stable restaurants that are consistent. A couple of, I think, shining stars. One of them, Bona Italian, has really upped its game the last few years. And it's just a delightful place to go in and have a nice dinner. The staff is friendly. The wine selection is good. The annual favorite, perennial favorite for most people is Rosie's, which we all love, and the vibe Rosie's is great. It's fun. So there's, again, like Aaron said before, kind of whatever you want. There's a lot of choices, and they do a really nice job of bringing a nice range of things. So it's not any. There's some really interesting little vibey places. There's a woman who's running a restaurant called Bubbles and Pearls down on the south end of the strip. And I believe she was one of the finalists or was the winner of one of the Food Show Network television contests. So just, some really nice options.
You know what? If I'm hanging out during the day, I have to go to Rosie's. I always have to go to Rosie's. It's always so good. And there's so many just nice people around.
It makes you feel happy. It makes you feel happy.
It does. It puts a smile on my face.
And they do a great job there. I use them as an example of an organization that does a really good job of having a consistently positive customer experience. The folks that run that place make sure that you always have a good customer experience there. And I think that's why they have such loyal customers.
Yeah. The fact that they give a lot back to the community too. They're very well known here. The businesses that do well give back. And so therefore,
Yeah. I hope they're listening to this podcast.
Yeah, those great guys.
How about public transportation? If you're living in Wilton Manors proper, can you walk pretty much everywhere from your home to the Wilton Drive to the Strip and do what you want to do? Or do you have to, everybody just takes their cars anyway because that's what you need to do in Florida?
I'll say that yes, it's a very pedestrian community, and so a lot of people do walk, depending upon if they live in that core area, especially within Wilton Manors. There is a good range of parking options, which is unusual for a city, especially as dense as population is here. So that's good, and we do see people drive. There is a very strong Uber community, and if you're going to the bars, I would encourage folks to use Uber or Lyft or any of the ride shares. And I'm seeing now, and Aaron, maybe you know what this is, there's this company that is driving around in Wilton Manors with these like little stretch limousine golf carts. And they'll drive you to places. And I don't know how far they go or where they go or who they are, but do you know anything about that?
It was designed by the city of Wilton Manors, and I think Chris Caputo was one of the ones that put that all together. If I remember right, I probably shouldn't be speaking too much about it, but long story short, it's a good service. You download the app, and for a small fee, $2 or $3, they'll take you home. I think it's anywhere, or pick you up or take you home anywhere in the city of Wilton Manors. So it's designed to ease parking, no drinking and driving, but to encourage people to go out and have fun, so we can get back out there and do what you want to do. Easy. We're very much a driving city, I would say. Still. I mean, we do have a bus service, obviously, but
I think all of Florida is.
Yeah, like Randy said, we do have parking, and most people do drive their cars.
Still. Yeah, especially in the summer months.
Yep. Oh,
Yeah.
definitely.
When you want to
Rain,
walk. Yeah,
humidity.
rain. Yep.
We're just
Yep.
entering our nice season, so I can't wait if you can't tell by the tone of my voice.
Yeah. Yeah. The nice season is so nice. It's so nice. Tell us about the crime. Is there any crime? I'm sure there isn't
Nope,
in
only nice
cities.
people. If you're listening right now, we only allow nice people here, and we're not, no crime. We're not doing crime.
We're not doing it today.
Long story short, I think it's comparable to most big cities, but maybe a little bit less. I mean, I think you still have to be smart about what you do and
Yeah.
whatnot, but I don't think you overly have a lot to worry about. The safety in numbers sort of thing. I don't know. You go down Wilton Drive, are you going to see gay people? Yep, there's a lot of gay people that live here. So people just know that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, like Darren said, you have to use your head and be common sense and always be careful. But this is a predominantly pedestrian community, and you hear of things occasionally, but I would say it's very rare. And I think that the police departments here do a good job of patrolling and keeping, especially in Wilton Manors, keeping an eye on things. So yeah, I think that overall, I feel like it's a safe place to live. It was one of my reasons for leaving Chicago. My neighborhood that I had lived in Boys Town for a long time had always been a very safe place and was starting not to feel safe when I moved. And so it's good here.
So, like walking around at night, coming home from a bar, I don't know what time, 10, 11, 12, whatever time, do you feel safe coming out of the bar, walking around, walking to your car?
I think our city is really well lit, and there's a lot of people around. I think the police are very present on the evenings, Thursday through Sunday. They're definitely out there, kind of looking around and whatnot. But you don't hear about a lot of major problems. I mean, do you hear about that, Randy? I don't.
No, and I
Not
would
too
just
much.
say the same, kind of reiterate what we just said, which is use common sense. I wouldn't walk by myself if I was going to walk into neighborhoods that are dark just to be safe. But we really, like Aaron said, just don't hear about a lot of problems. And I think people tend to walk with somebody if they're going to go someplace as opposed to going by themselves, or they take Uber or,
Yeah, that great invention Uber becomes
yeah.
very
Yes.
well used. Yep.
Yep, absolutely. How about tell us about healthcare? So,
Oh, that's a good one.
are there
Yeah.
major hospitals around, and are there specialty hospitals? Do I have to go into Miami, or can I get really good care here in Fort Lauderdale
Just a real
locally?
quick story on that. So being in real estate, I had one group of guys or a couple that were moving here. They were actually moving here for the healthcare. The fact that it is much easier catering towards gay needs and whatnot. Midland Medical, which is right very close to Wilton Manors, their whole huge facility is pretty much dedicated to gay men and gay men issues, if you will.
Hmm.
So I think it's fantastic, and that's one of the things that I like about living here is you can get questions to answers of things that pertain to gay men. Yeah.
And to kind of notch it up even further, the hospitals here I think are state of the art, and for better or worse, I've had personal experiences with some of them already, and I have had exceptional health care. One in particular, Holy Cross Hospital, which is one of the main hospitals here in Fort Lauderdale, is state of the art. The people that work there are all top notch in their professions. They have one of the best heart treatment facilities in the country. And then there's a lot of other hospitals in the area. I don't want to just single out Holy Cross, but I think that that's one of the reasons that you would choose to live here over a lot of other places is there is good choices and there's an abundance of them. So I don't hear about people having to wait 3 months to get to an appointment with their doctor. My physician, I can usually get in that week or the next week at the very latest. And so I think that for somebody who's considering living in Fort Lauderdale or living in a more tropical destination, I would think that would be one of the considerations of why you would pick Fort Lauderdale. Also, you mentioned Miami. Miami has some very state of the art medical facilities and hospitals that just amplify those resources. So if you're looking for something very specialized, oftentimes if we don't have it here, they have it there.
It's so important, especially for retirees looking to retire in the area. That's one of the number one things that I would look for is quality of healthcare and
Absolutely.
how
Very
fast can I get
important.
in to see a
Yeah.
doctor. So that's really, really important. Good, good. I'm glad to hear. In fact, come to think of it, I was in a hospital in Fort Lauderdale. So, make a long story short, we were at a hot tub in a place in Fort Lauderdale. I'm not going to name the place, but my husband he'd gotten a rash, I guess, from the hot tub. And he was like, "Oh, I feel really hot." And I'm like, "Oh, you look like you really got good color today." And he was just blotchy. And yeah, we had to go into the hospital and they had to give him an EpiPen. And he was allergic to something in the water. But yeah, it worked out okay.
Oh,
Well, good. I'm glad our medical professionals were able to help you.
They were. And they were very nice too. So how do you think, have you ever been to St. Pete? Like, it has a different type of vibe. How would you compare that to the vibe of Fort Lauderdale and Wilton Manors?
So I love St. Pete and have spent some time there, especially during COVID. It became kind of our de facto little escape place. If we just were like, we got to get away, we got to go somewhere. So we would drive up there, and they had done a great job of keeping their museums open and things of interest. And so got a chance to spend quite a bit of time there. It's interesting. It's like a charming version of Fort Lauderdale in an upscale kind of way. It feels a little more, I will say, metropolitan. It feels a little more city-like because there's a downtown that's very robust there. It's geographically very well situated with the bay and everything. Again, you have access to Tampa, you have Sarasota, you have all of these things kind of right in that immediate area. So if somebody were considering Florida or South Florida, I would definitely encourage them to also look at St. Pete. I think a lot of the same points that we've just made about Fort Lauderdale apply there, with the exception of, I don't think that they have as defined LGBT community spaces as we have here.
Correct.
It's more spread out. There are folks there, there are places there, there are certainly all these resources there, but it's not as dense, or it doesn't feel as planned as this does. So that would be the one thing that I would caution, but it's a beautiful, beautiful city. I love it. I could see myself living there someday.
Well, that's one of the things that's neat about Wilton Manors is its driving distance to all these great places. Key West, St. Petersburg, West Palm Beach, Miami. You're really in a great spot.
Yeah, it's pretty centrally located to everything. And yeah, I would say the comparison to St. Pete also, St. Pete might have some neighborhoods, like historic neighborhoods that cater more to the LGBT community, whereas I see Wilton Manors is just one big LGBT community. Yeah. That's how I picture it. What do you wish were in Fort Lauderdale or Wilton Manors that you don't have that you may have had elsewhere?
Mountains. We don't have any mountains. It's completely flat here.
There you go.
So if you want to go hiking, we don't have that.
That's not true, Aaron. There's a mountain about 5 miles north of here.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Mountain?
I have no idea.
So we have the flattest topography here, and literally 5 miles from here is a mountain. It's a garbage pile.
Oh, it's called Mount Pompano. I forgot about that.
It has a name, Mount Pompano.
That's right.
So it's so weird when you are driving a car because you're like flat, and all of a sudden here's this mountain sticking out of the ground, and then you're like, oh, that's garbage.
Is it really garbage? Yeah, I was
garbage.
just going to ask. It's
a landfill. Yeah.
You can't see it from Wilton Manors. I'll tell you, that's a good thing.
Yes. And you can't smell it. That's even more important.
Other than that, I mean, the only one thing that coming from the north that you hear people talk about, and I guess I can relate to it on some level, but people will say, oh, I miss the 4 seasons. We don't have that. We have 2 seasons here. We have
humidity and no humidity.
We have rainy season, and then we have the rest of the year. And it's tropical for those 3 or 4 months, and then it's just extraordinary the rest of the time. And if you want to put on a sweater, get on a plane and go up north in October and drink your pumpkin spice and come back then.
Well, they do it when it's about 60 degrees here. You'll see earmuffs and sweaters and all these crazy things come out, and you're like, what is going on? You look down at your temperature, it's 65.
That's why. Yeah. So do you have foliage?
I can tell you what I wish we didn't have here, and that is iguanas.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of those.
They're so cute and colorful.
Anybody that knows me.
Gecko geckos.
Oh, no. These are the big,
the
3 foot, the big 3 foot ones that are flourishing here because somebody let them out years ago, and they have no natural predators. That falls into the reasons why someone wouldn't want to move here. If you're freaked out by a gigantic iguana, they're very afraid of you. They don't come around people, but I've come home and they're sitting up on my roof looking down at me, and they're very present and increasingly.
Plants a lot of flowers.
How about gators?
Well, that's partially true. So the gators historically stay out in the Everglades.
I was going to say they don't come to the city.
You would think. And the biological reason for that is that they don't like salt water. And as the water gets closer and closer to the ocean, the more salt content that you start to get in it. But during mating season, they will venture out of their normal places. And people even in Wilton Manors will say, oh, well, we don't have alligators in the canals. Not true. Have seen pictures of them up sunning themselves on the shore when the water's low enough. It's very much typically during mating season, but anywhere there's water in Florida, there could be an alligator. There could be an alligator.
That's what I said, because when I lived in Tampa, you can bet on every retention pond that you pass has a gator.
Yep.
And you may not think it, but they're there.
Yeah. We go to a campground in the middle of the state that the spot that we often stay in is literally across the street from a little retention pond. And all night long, there's a male alligator that sits out there and croaks just to let you know he's out there all night long. And everybody knows he's there. No one's afraid of him. And that's just the way you get used to it.
Yeah. Getting back just a little bit to the weather, you just experienced a little bit of Hurricane Ian. What does the hurricane situation, I mean, does it scare you? Or are you like so used to it now? What are your feelings every rainy season that goes by? You have to prepare. What's on your mind?
I don't think you ever get used to it. I mean, you do get used to it and you plan for it. And how do you do that? You keep cases of water in your garage pretty much year round. You keep a supply of some food things in your freezer. Everybody has kind of a lot of canned stuff. Everybody has kind of a backup plan. If the thing with hurricanes are you get notice, but the problem is by the time you get notice, it's very difficult to make any changes. There was a big storm about 3 or 4 years ago, and I don't remember which one that was. Maybe you remember, Aaron. It was like a Cat 5 storm bearing right down on Fort Lauderdale. And we were all like, okay, what do we do? And at that point, you're stuck. You can't get out because the gas is on, so you can't get in your car and drive. The flights are all full or they've shut them down. So you just kind of hunker down. That one we got lucky, and it literally turned and ran 100 miles. It went 100 miles off the shore, just followed up the coastline, and we dodged that bullet. So it's all about being prepared and making sure that you've got your house resilient to the storms, as resilient as they can be. Most people are now upgrading their homes to include the impact windows, and you can
shutters.
Get enhanced roofing materials and the shutters, and you prepare and you just get through it.
It's kind of like Randy says, you get a little bit of warning. So you're kind of being stalked by a turtle. It doesn't move real quick. So you got some time to make some decisions.
The worst part about storms, from what I've experienced, from what I've heard, and I've been fortunate in the now 9 years I've lived here to not actually ever have this happen, but you could have your power shut down for like a week or 2 weeks and not have power. So that's no air conditioning, nothing to cook with, nothing to refrigerate with. And so that could be kind of miserable.
Has that happened to you guys?
Yeah.
Actually, it happened to the rest of the world, but Randy's house, luckily enough, did not lose any power. So that was the refuge for all these people going over. Can we come over and do laundry? Can we come over and get coffee? So
That's great.
The newer subdivisions, which again there are a few of, have all of the lines buried below the ground, tend to have less of a problem. These older neighborhoods that have everything up, those are the ones that you could be out of power for. I mean, it could happen anywhere, but they tend to get hit a little bit harder and be out longer.
Right. Yeah.
What would you guys say are there any cons of living in Fort Lauderdale, Wilton Manors?
Aaron, do you have anything?
Trying to think.
It's a tough one because you love it there.
I just think it's a great place. I mean, if you're even thinking about planning for your future, and if Wilton Manors is something you want to do in your future, come take a vacation here, enjoy some of the hotels, guest houses, the life, check it out. And if you think it's in the next 10 years you want to live here, a lot of people are buying places and then renting them out, doing Airbnb, and so they can become more accustomed to the lifestyle of living here. Yeah, ultimately, 50 and above, this is the place to live. It's absolute perfection. It's easy to travel out, but when you're here, I think we're the most consistently warm place in the United States, if I'm not mistaken. There's a lot to love about Fort Lauderdale.
I think there's no utopia. That's my personal view. And I think that every person has to go through the process of weighing the pros and cons. I will caution you, this has been my experience in life. Places that I go to in vacation are my happy places, and they have this appeal. And then when you move there and you have your daily life going on now, some of that goes away. And as long as there's still enough left that's appealing, you're good. But I would caution people to differentiate between what things feel like when you're on vacation and what your life might actually be like there.
Yeah, totally different.
Yeah. But beyond that, like, I think that the pros definitely outweigh any of the cons. I think that every place has things that are positive. There are things that are potentially negative. For somebody who doesn't like humidity at all, this is definitely not a place I would want to consider. For somebody who is bothered by the risk that these storms and our changing weather, and that's important to emphasize, create, then this might not be the right place for you. We are feeling, without question, the impacts of climate change. And whereas I think when I first moved here, even 9 years ago, I thought that, oh, that's something that will impact us in 50 or 75 years. We are now seeing king tide, for example, is where we get these real high tides, and it literally shuts down parts of the city for a week or two with increasing problems related to that. So it just comes down to what your tolerance is for some of those things versus the things that make this a very desirable place to live. And in the end, for myself, unless there's what I would describe as further political erosion. Just last week, our governor outlawed, I believe, the book To Kill a Mockingbird, along with some 500 other books. That concerns me. So those are things to watch, right? But I didn't move here for the politics, but these are all things that we have to be cognizant of.
Yeah, wherever we are.
Yep.
Okay, great, guys. Is there anything else that you'd like to add? And Aaron, I'm going to ask, where could people find you?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Again, my name is Aaron Burke, and I work for Remax Experience, which is right off the drive in Wilton Manors. If you're at all interested in taking a look at any type of real estate here, what the pricing is, what can be had for X amount of dollars, or what can't be had on the other side, I definitely would love to talk to you and get the ball rolling. I've actually met a couple people off of this Where Do Gays Retire, and one gentleman actually, like I suggested, buy a place now, rent it out if Fort Lauderdale's in your plan 5 years down the road. And he's so happy that he's done that. He comes back to visit, and we always have lunch and go check out his property. And yeah, it's a great place to be. The best way to reach me is Aaron at Remax Experience. Do you want my phone number?
Go ahead.
It's 954-632-0344. Again, that's 954-632-0344. Feel free to send me a text message or give me a call, and we can kind of start a dialogue, and I can let you know what we have to offer. Fort Lauderdale is a great place to be. I highly recommend it. I can't say enough great things about it. Randy, what's your take on it?
As it relates to Aaron as the realtor to the stars, not only is he a personal friend, but he is also my realtor and just recently helped me do a deal. So I can attest to Aaron's professionalism and the markets that he serves. And I agree with you. I think it's a great place to live. I mean, the best way to validate that is I've put my money where my mouth is, and I own real estate here. This is my home. And I have no regrets and love living here.
If you are looking for a realtor, I recommend making sure you work with one that's bought a property before, owns property, and is full-time. Because there's a lot of us in this neighborhood, but the quality is not all the same. So just be wary of that. Mark, thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. And if I were to buy a home, or rent something, I would definitely come to see you, Aaron. I have walked around Wilton Manors looking at real estate, happened to walk into the same real estate agency that Aaron worked and met him in person. And he's a great guy. I would definitely use you as a realtor if I moved there.
Thank you.
Well, this was
welcome.
fun. I hope that we gave you guys some things to think about.
Yeah, it was great. And yeah, thank you guys. And we'll talk very soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Where Do Gays Retire podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast and consider making a donation by clicking the coffee cup on any page at www.wheredogaysretire.com. Each cup of coffee that you buy costs $5 and goes towards helping us continue the podcast. Thank you for your continued support.